Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be talking about MySQL 8.0 partitioning.
Okay.
Um, have you ever thought about how databases manage huge
Yeah,
amounts of information? So
absolutely.
partitioning is a really big part of that.
It is.
So imagine if you had a library and it was the size of a city,
Whoa.
right?
Yeah.
And it was just books everywhere, and you had to find one specific book.
Oh,
It would be a nightmare.
yeah, that's a nightmare.
Right. But what if that library was magically reorganized
Oh,
into
okay.
different sections, right?
Yeah.
Like history or,
Right.
romance or something like that. And
Yeah.
each of those had their own little area.
Yeah.
That would make it way easier to find what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's basically what partitioning is. It's taking these huge tables in a database
Okay.
and splitting them up into smaller ones that are way easier to manage.
I like that analogy a lot.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It is.
And the cool thing is this isn't just for like, you know, database experts or anything like that.
Yeah.
This is something that can really help anyone who uses MySQL.
Absolutely.
Because what it does is it makes your queries run super fast.
Oh, yeah.
So instead of searching through, a billion rows,
Yeah.
MySQL can go right to the data it needs.
Oh, wow.
And that can make a huge difference.
It can.
Like if you're running a website or something like that.
Makes sense.
And on top of that, it also makes your storage more efficient.
Okay.
So, it's kind of like decluttering your computer or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
Just make everything run smoother.
So it sounds like MySQL 8.0 gives us a few different ways to partition our data.
It does.
And I know each one has its own pros and cons.
Right.
So we've got range list, hash, and key.
Yeah. So range partitioning, I feel like that one's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
We're basically dividing the data up based on, ranges of values.
Right.
So let's say you have all of your financial transactions.
Okay.
You could use range partitioning to organize them by year. Right. So all of your online purchases or your bills or, all that stuff
Right.
would be sorted by year.
Yeah.
So if you needed to analyze your spending for 2023,
Yeah.
MySQL could just go straight to that year's partition
Makes sense.
instead of having to search through everything else.
Yeah. And that's super helpful for data that naturally falls into a time sequence, right?
Exactly.
Like logs or financial transactions, as you mentioned.
Yep.
Sensor readings, things like that.
And it can also be really useful if you need to get rid of old data,
Oh, really?
like maybe for legal reasons or something like that. You could just drop an entire year's worth of data all at once
Wow.
instead of going through and deleting each individual transaction.
That's a lot easier.
Yeah, way easier.
So much more efficient.
So that's range partitioning.
Okay, cool.
What about list partitioning?
List partitioning. Well, that's all about putting your data into
Okay.
these predefined groups.
Yeah.
Imagine you have customers all over the world. Okay.
You could use list partitioning to group them by country.
Oh.
And that makes it super easy to analyze sales trends by region.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like organizing your library by genre.
Yeah.
You always know where to go for your sci-fi fix.
Right, right.
So,
So that's a list partitioning. Are there any downsides to that?
yeah, it works best when you've got a clear and a small set of categories.
Okay.
But if your list is always changing,
Yeah,
it might be less useful.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about data that doesn't fit into ranges or lists?
Okay.
Let's say you're working with something like user IDs where there's not really a pattern.
Okay, yeah.
What do you do then?
Well, that's when HAS partitioning comes in handy.
Okay.
It automatically distributes your data evenly
Oh.
across different buckets, we call them.
Okay.
And that helps prevent these things called hotspots.
Hotspots.
Yeah, hotspots are basically
Okay.
areas of the database that get way more traffic than others.
Yeah. Oh,
And that can really slow things down.
yeah. That makes sense.
But HAS partitioning helps us avoid that
Okay.
by making sure that the data is spread out.
So it's kind of like load balancing for your data.
Exactly, like load balancing.
Okay.
And then key partitioning is similar to HHH, but instead of you giving it the hash function,
Okay.
it uses MySQL's internal function.
Gotcha.
And sometimes that's even more efficient,
Okay, cool.
especially when the data distribution isn't really clear.
So we've talked about range list, hash, and key partitioning.
We have.
But I heard that MySQL 8.0 has this secret weapon.
Oh, yeah.
It's called subpartitioning.
Subpartitioning.
What is that?
So subpartitioning is kind of like adding another dimension
Yep.
to the way you organize things.
Okay.
So remember how we talked about the library with different sections?
Yeah.
It's like taking those sections and then adding shelves inside of each one
Oh, okay.
to categorize the books even more,
So you're basically taking those partitions.
and then breaking them down even further.
Exactly.
Why would you want to do that, though?
Well, it gives you a lot more control,
Okay.
and you can optimize things even better.
Okay.
So let's go back to that sales data example.
Right.
You could partition by year using range,
Okay.
and then within each year, you could subpartition by month using HASH.
Oh, okay.
So finding the sales figures for like July 2023 would be super fast.
Oh, wow. So it's like you're adding like laser precision to your data retrieval.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Okay, so to like sum everything up, partitioning gives us faster queries, more efficient storage,
Yeah,
and easier maintenance.
absolutely.
And with subpartitioning in MySQL 8.0, we can take all of those benefits
Yeah.
and like make them even better.
We can.
So it sounds like partitioning is like the ultimate solution, right?
Well, it's an amazing tool,
Yeah.
but it's not always the answer.
Okay.
Like, if your data set is small,
Yeah.
it might not really help you that much.
Okay.
And it could even make things more complicated.
So it's really about finding the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
Okay, so our final thought for you today is to think about what kind of partitioning would be best for your data.
Yeah.
Now that you know all the options, you can start asking the right questions and really unlock the power of MySQL 8.0.
I like it.
Happy partitioning, everyone!